Hi, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about splash screens. Okay, so I hope you guys all had a really great weekend. Like we had a long weekend here because of May Day. We had Monday off, and I think most places had Monday off. The Philippines had Monday off. I'm not sure if they did in the States, but I think it's one of those global holidays. So it was a nice long weekend. So I apologize for not doing a video yesterday, but it was a great weekend. Now first, let me start by apologizing for my voice, because one thing I did this weekend was, well, the whole weekend, was I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. Like I've always wanted to go to one, like Anthony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. I've always wanted to go to that, but it's always been too expensive. So this year I finally went. And if you've ever been to one of those things, there's a lot of, shouting and, singing and dancing and jumping around and high-fiving and all this kind of stuff. And it's actually, it's pretty corny, but, you kind of just have to get into it. You have to just, accept the corniness and jump into it, which I did. But anyway, I lost my voice on the first night. So it's been like this, for the duration of the weekend. So anyway, I apologize for that. So today what I want to do is talk about splash screens, because I think somebody had asked me about splash screens in the comments last week. Although I'm looking, I can't find the comment anywhere, right? So, they asked whether or not splash screens are important, right? And it's something we never really talked about before, right? And I think they're basically two types of splash screens, or loading screens, however you want to talk about them. There's the necessary ones and the unnecessary ones. So the necessary ones are like the ones like the default.png, or would you put in, like if you go into iOS, into Xcode, and you go into the screen with the icons and you put all the loading screens in there, to make sure you have something that loads up right when the app opens. And those just kind of show up. They don't have a set duration. It's just while the app is loading, those show, right? And what that does is it makes it so that you as soon as you click on the app, if it takes a long time to load, the user's not sitting there waiting. At least they see something immediately. And a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll actually take like an image of the app, and then that way, when you open it, they see the app right away, even though they can't click on anything yet because they're actually just looking at an image, right? I've heard of people doing that, right? And we had one app that we did they're really useful. Like we did one app for a client that they wanted to have like this big animation when the app first loaded. So they had this animation with lots of frames, and it was really high resolution images because for all the different screen sizes, right? And when we finally released it to them in beta, we noticed that it took like 3 or 4 seconds to load the app. And the first thing they did was complain about it. And we thought, well, we could get rid of that animation, which they didn't want to do. So this is one of the cases where that splash screen came in really handy, because at least there was something that they could see there, right? So it was, as soon as the app opens up, right, you want to see that splash screen, show up there immediately, and and do a little bit of branding there too, right? So the other type of splash screen is the unnecessary splash screen, like the kind that you would load programmatically, right? So, like in your app, you might have it, as soon as it opens, rather than going to the main page or the menu or whatever, you would have it go to a splash screen for a few seconds and then move on to there. Now these types of things are not necessary. They slow down the app. As a software developer, they annoy me because I think, it's just showboating and all that kind of stuff. But having said that, we do it for every single one of our apps. It's one of these things where, once we started, doing the apps, I thought, now, I want to put a splash screen in there. So we actually have the loading one. Where necessary, we have the loading screen, but then we go straight into a splash screen. And, we have different ones for different apps. And sometimes we'll have like a little cute saying that we, like we'll have like an array of like 5 or 6 little sayings that we'll have at the bottom of it, and show those. And then that way, when the user opens the app, they see our logo and our splash screen for, like no more than 3 seconds. 3 seconds is a limit, right? And I thought long and hard about this. I thought, is that something I really want to do? I don't want to annoy people. But in the end, I was really glad I did it. You look at, we've had 7.5 million downloads of our apps, which means like 7.5 million people have seen that logo that I designed up there. They've seen they've seen Overpass. They're probably not paying attention to it, but at that moment it's probably the best time, because you click on the icon and that's where you have the attention of the user. You get their they see your logo. They might not register it, but I'm sure Coca-Cola puts logos everywhere, and they don't expect you to say, hey, that's a Coca-Cola logo, because it's just everywhere, right? And I think it's the same as being like in the movies. When you go to the movies, there's always those little bits at the beginning, like Paramount Pictures or whatever. They seem to be getting longer and longer, right? Paramount Pictures presents the stars going over there and all that kind of stuff. So they obviously they take time to put that in there, because they think we have all these people's attention. We spent such a long time working on this. We're going to put our brand up there at the beginning. And you might say, well, that's Paramount, or other things, like television shows or whatever. They all do that same kind of thing, right? You might think, well, they're big, right? And I like to think that the reason I didn't want to do it to begin with was because I thought, we're not that big. And this is one of the things that bothered me. I thought, I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard, right? Oh God, the amount of things I haven't done because I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard, right? So I didn't do it to begin with, and then in the end, I was really glad that I did. And some people, and people have given me a hard time about this kind of stuff, and the fact that I have a baseball cap with my logo on it and all that kind of stuff. That, who do you think you are? You're one of these big companies, right? And to be honest with you, I'm tired of playing small. I think if there's one regret I've had over the years is that I've always, that you play small. You think, some things are out of your league and some things are within your league. And the only time I've ever advanced in my life was when I stretched, out of my league. And I started thinking about this more. The idea that I put, our logo or our name on something at the beginning, and a lot of our apps will put credits in there too. So like, we put credits with the developers in it, because that, gets everybody kind of motivated. Everybody's really keen to start. And you might say, oh, well, but they're paid. That's what they're paid for. But, I disagree. You go to the movies and you see all those credits at the end. Those people are paid too, but they've also worked very hard, and they deserve a recognition. So we always have a credits section in most of our apps. We have credits, but then we also have the splash screen at the beginning. I was walking through London over the weekend, at the seminar, or on the way home from the seminar, and you see, if you've ever walked on if you've ever been on the London Underground, it's like looking through a magazine. It's just ad everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's billboards and everything like that. But I walked past a billboard, and I was looking at one thinking, and I looked at it, and they actually put their little logo at the top of it. So they sell advertising, obviously, but they still take the opportunity to put their little logo there as Experian or something like that, right? And who cares who they are? They're not Coca-Cola, they're not Paramount, they're not all these big companies, right? But they do. And the only reason I noticed it because I looked for it, and I've noticed it before because I was thinking about I wonder how much it would cost to put like an ad for Overpass, like on the Underground. Who would I call, right? And if they didn't have anything there, I wouldn't even know. It is possible that you do an app that somebody really likes, right? And they want to do something similar, or they might want to hire you or something like that. And if you don't brand yourself properly, they won't know who's done that app, right? You can't expect them to go, find the app on their phone and think, who made this? And then, go back into the app store and look for it so they can find your name and your email address. It's best if you have all that right when you open up. Now, you might disagree with me. As always, it's just my opinion, but I think splash screens, most of the time, they're not necessary, but they're fun, and I like having them there. So anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully my voice will be back a little bit more tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.